1. Vitamin C plays an important role in keeping us healthy. Most mammals produce it in their livers, so they never suffer from a lack of it. Curiously, however, some mammals, such as humans and apes, cannot do so. What happens when you lack this important vitamin? You might see black and blue marks on your skin. Your teeth could suffer too. The pink area around them might become soft and bleed easily. These are just a couple of good reasons to eat plenty of fresh fruit.
2. The word drug means anything that, even in small amounts, produces changes in the body, the mind, or both. This definition, however, does not clearly separate drugs from what we usually think of as food. The difference between a drug and a poison is also unclear. All drugs become poisons in large amounts, and many poisons are useful drugs in carefully controlled amounts. Is alcohol, for instance, a food, a drug, or a poison? It can be any of the three, depending on how we use it.
3. Green tea has a long history in Japan and strong ties with Japanese culture. Because of this, one might think that green tea comes from a plant unique to Japan. However, all tea, no matter what its color or taste, comes from the same plant. Then what causes the differences in taste and color? They are, in fact, the result of different ways of growing the tea and treating it after it is picked.
4. Wolves have an interesting way of raising their young. When a female wolf is ready to give birth, she digs a hole. Within this hole, she has her babies. While she is taking care of these babies, other wolves bring her food. After they get a little older, the mother can leave them while she goes off to hunt with other members of the group. Then, instead of the mother, another female will stay behind to guard the young wolves.
5. Physical gestures may have different meanings in different cultures, and misunderstanding these signals can sometimes be embarrassing. I once had an experience which I have never forgotten. Some years ago, I took a small group of foreign students to Kyoto. I counted them with the index finger, which is common in Japan. But one of them became quiet and looked puzzled. When I asked him what was the matter, he replied, "In my country, we count people with our eyes. We use our fingers to count pigs."
6. The smile may no longer be an effective way to mask one's true feelings. Some psychologists have claimed that true smiles and false smiles use different muscles. For example, in the true smile, the muscles surrounding the eyes tighten, while the cheek muscles pull the corners of the lips upward. On the other hand, in the false smile, the muscles between the eyebrows move slightly, while the muscles around the mouth pull the corners of the lips downward. If the psychologist's claim is proven to be true, perhaps people will worry less about what they say and more about which muscles to use when they smile.
7. When English-speaking people talk about hot food, are they saying the food is spicy like curry? Or are they talking about its temperature, as in hot coffee? These two different meanings of hot may seem confusing to Japanese students. But as a matter of fact, the word is the right one for describing the way the body responds to spice and heat. A simple explanation would go something like this. When we eat or drink, the same nerves in the mouth react both to spicy chemicals in the food and to a rise in temperature. The English expression, therefore, reflects this fact about the human body.
8. Western clothes have buttons on the right for men. This is convenient because the majority of men are right-handed. It is easier for them to use the right hand when buttoning up. Why then do women's clothes have buttons on the left, even though most women are also right-handed? Is this a kind of discrimination? In fact, there is a reason why women's buttons are on that side. In the past, buttons were quite expensive and only very rich people could afford them. Women in such wealthy families had servants who dressed them. Therefore, to make it easier for the servants, buttons were put on the left.
9. The color purple has often been regarded as a symbol of wealth and power, but the dye used to produce it did not have an elegant beginning. An ancient people living along the coast of the Mediterranean Sea first discovered how to make the dye from murex snails, small sea animals with hard shells. Unlike other snails, murex snails give off a strong-smelling liquid that changes color when it comes into contact with air and light. From this liquid, the people produced the purple dye. If we visit the places where the dye was produced, we might still be able to see the shells of murex snails. Let us hope we cannot smell them.
10. In August of 1771, Joseph Priestley put a small branch of mint into a transparent closed space with a candle, which burned out the air until it soon went out. After 27 days, he lit the extinguished candle again, and it burned perfectly well in the air that previously would not support it. So Priestley proved that plants somehow change the composition of the air. In another celebrated experiment from 1772, Priestley kept a mouse in a jar of air until it collapsed. He found that a mouse kept with a plant would survive. These kinds of observations led Priestley to offer an interesting theory that plants restore to the air whatever breathing animals and burning candles remove, what was later coined by Lavoisier, oxygen.
11. When she was 36 years old, Agatha Christie left home one foggy night and disappeared. The next morning, her car was found halfway down a grassy bank with its hood stuck in the bushes. The police found her fur coat in the car, but there was no sign of her. What they suspected was attempted suicide because her marriage was seriously troubled at the time. Despite the extensive police search of the whole area, there were no clues to her whereabouts. But then, 11 days after her disappearance, the head waiter at a hotel in North Yorkshire noticed that one of the female guests looked similar to the newspaper photos of the missing novelist. 12. He rang the police, and her husband rushed to see her. To his surprise, however, Agatha acted like a completely different person and didn't seem to recognize her husband. He thought she had suffered a memory loss due to stress. In fact, it was a distressful incident for Agatha and was followed by their divorce. But ironically, the incident made her a best-selling novelist. Her next novel, The Big Four, sold 9,000 copies, more than twice as many as any of her previous books.
13. Have you ever thought about what skin does for us? Most of us are aware that skin protects us from liquid, heat, cold, dirt, and bacteria. But that is not its only job. For instance, the skin is where our bodies make the vitamin D that we need. Another function has to do with the sense of touch. Without that sense, we could not feel any difference between rough and smooth surfaces. Skin can even help us determine if someone is sick. The wrong color, slightly gray or very pale, may be a sign of disease. Skin may reflect a person's mental state too. Unusual sweating, for example, may be a sign that a person is nervous or under stress.
14. Genes, the basic parts of cells which are passed down from parents to children, may have something to do with human behavior. In an experiment, scientists put flies into a glass tube and placed a light at the end of it. Some of the flies began flying toward the light, some began walking, and some did not move at all. On the basis of the flies' actions, they were separated into different groups: flies that love light, flies that like light, and flies that like the dark. The researchers found that these three groups of flies had variations in a particular set of genes. This suggested to the researchers that the variations in these genes might explain the differences in the flies' behaviors. If genes influence behaviors in flies, why not in humans too?
15. There are many benefits of reading books aloud to young children. First, Reading aloud is a wonderful opportunity for parents to spend time in close contact with their children. After a busy day, reading a book can be a relaxing way for a family to slow down and communicate. Another important feature of reading aloud is that many books have thoughtful ideas or moral messages. Parents and children can explore these concepts together. In addition, listening to stories helps a child learn vocabulary and sentence structure. Moreover, some researchers believe that reading aloud to a child actually stimulates learning and benefits brain development. Studies have shown that children do better in school when their parents have read to them frequently. Psychologists, doctors, teachers, and librarians encourage parents to read aloud on a regular basis to assist the development of the child and build strong family relationships.
16. Every day, millions of people in offices, supermarkets, and factories worldwide hear background music. For most background music, the soundtracks have been carefully selected to change human behavior. According to research, fast music will not change human behavior as much as slow music. Slow music, for instance, will make customers shop more slowly. The longer they shop in a store, the more they will buy. Background music has also been used with great success in many factories. Fast music does not make employees work faster as some had expected, nor does slow music make them work slower. The main effect of background music is that it reduces work-related stress and helps employees stay interested in their work. This necessarily reduces on-the-job accidents and saves companies money. Next time you hear background music, listen carefully and try to guess which of your behaviors it is trying to change. Chances are that you too are somehow being influenced by background music.
17. Have you ever noticed the different approaches people use to deal with problems? Some people, individualists, generally try to work through problems on their own. Other people, cooperators, tend to approach problem solving as a group matter. Each approach has positive and negative points. Individualists may often be the quickest to find an answer to a problem, and they tend to be willing to take responsibility. However, this approach is not perfect. They may be too committed to a particular position to be able to change their opinions. In this way, the individualist approach may result in difficulties later. Cooperators are valued as team members, in sports or school or work. They tend to be flexible enough to recognize the importance of other points of view when problems arise. This approach, however, can take a long time, which may lead to delays in solving problems. Such difficulties sometimes cannot be avoided with the cooperator's approach. We should learn to recognize the different approaches to dealing with problems. This knowledge can help us build smoother relations between people with different approaches to problem solving.
18. Although cats appear to perform most actions instinctively, they also seem to react to human behavior and adapt themselves to it. For instance, some cats behave as if they understood their owner's feelings. One cat owner told of the time when she lay crying and exhausted on her bed, and her cat put its front legs around her head and comforted her. Cats also sometimes appear to be able to understand the function of many of the things human beings use. For example, some cats, when they bring a captured bird or mouse into the house, put it on a plate or in a dish. There are also cats who know how to open a door by turning the handle. Furthermore, a lot of cats seem to understand what their owners say. A writer tells a story of her cat who used to sleep on top of her word processor. At first, when the cat's tail got in the way of the screen, the owner would push its tail away and say, "Move your tail, please." Eventually, she didn't have to push the tail, but only had to tell the cat to move it.
19. English is a language with an enormous number of words, but how many English words are there? Most dictionaries used by college students have about 200,000 words, while most full-length dictionaries have about 300,000 to 600,000. Meanwhile, an organization called the Global Language Monitor positively claims that there are exactly 1,019,729 English words. But counting the number of words in English is not an easy task. First of all, many words that we use in English today were originally words in other languages. Should the words sushi or tsunami be considered English words now that they are frequently used? Then there is the question of words that were used centuries ago but are no longer used today. Should they be counted too? What about words that are only used in certain regions of a country? 20. And the list of questions goes on. Should we count the verb, the adjective, the noun, and other forms of a word as separate words? In other words, would drive, driving, and driver be counted as separate words? Should a compound word be counted as one word, or should each of the words in it be counted separately? How about the huge number of technical and scientific terms? Finally, to add to the difficulties of counting words, we need to consider new words that are being created all the time. The constantly changing nature of language is frustrating for anyone trying to count words. But this is also what makes language so interesting. English, like other languages, always offers something new to learn.
21. There is much debate on the origin of the game of football. The Japanese and Chinese claim to have invented a sport similar to modern soccer many centuries ago. In comparison to modern soccer, the Japanese game of kemari was a game that used a large ball stuffed with sawdust. This version used a field which was set up by choosing 4 trees. These trees were usually cherry, maple, pine, and willow. Many large houses in Japan would grow these trees to make a field for kemari. Kemari was normally played with 2 to 12 players. China's version, tsuchu, involved players hitting a leather fur-stuffed ball into a small hole. As in soccer, no player could use his hands during play. It was considered an honor to be part of a team. The first international soccer or tsuchu match is believed to have been held in China around 50 BC. 22. The emperor of the Han Dynasty was an avid early player and fan of tsuchu. This spread the popularity of tsuchu all over China. Some people in China claim that it is even possible tsuchu could go back to 5000 BC. The British claim that soccer was created in the 8th century in Britain. It was not a recreational sport at the time, but a war game. It was a violent game, and serious injury and even death were not uncommon. It was not until 1815, when Eton College set up a series of rules for the game, that it became a less violent sport. At that time, colleges began to play using similar rules. In 1848, the rules were set by Cambridge University. In the Cambridge rules, shin kicking and carrying the ball were forbidden. This is where rugby and soccer developed into 2 different sports.
23. When we watch kittens and puppies playing, we realize that through play they are learning how to live. They learn various physical skills, such as how to jump over barriers without getting hurt. They also learn social interaction. For example, if a kitten bites his sister too hard, she will get angry and bite him back. These physical and social skills form part of the training that young animals need in order to grow up. Just as kittens and puppies learn about how to live through play, so do children. But in present-day Japan, especially in cities, there is not much space for children to play in. Children need to release their energy for their mental and physical health. They need space, especially outdoors, so that they can run, jump, and yell. 24. Another point to consider is how much time children have to play. Some people say that 4 to 5 hours a day of playing outdoors with others is necessary, even for 12-year-olds. It is very doubtful, however, whether any Japanese children get that much free time. Concerned about their future in an increasingly competitive society, parents generally tell their children to study more. Very few would tell them to go out and play. What do these children do at home when they are not studying? They tend to spend time by themselves. They play video games or watch TV, for instance. These activities do not teach them how to get along with others. This can only be learned through playing with other children. They need to play without being told what to do by adults in order to learn about leadership and group harmony on their own. Outdoor space is particularly suitable for this purpose. Children need a proper outdoor environment where they can freely spend their time playing with friends.
25. Traditions and customs based on superstitions and religion have been an important aspect of weddings in all cultures. They vary greatly from one country to another, and sometimes even between different ethnic groups in a particular country. Though many traditions and customs have been forgotten through the years, many of today's wedding ceremonies have their beginnings in ancient beliefs and customs that originated in medieval times. In a Christian wedding, the bride usually wears a white wedding gown to show that she is pure. White was a color that was once believed to keep evil spirits away. On the other hand, in Hinduism, white signifies the color of death. A Hindu bride usually wears a red dress with gold stitching. In China, both the bride and groom are dressed in red, which is a color associated with celebration and good fortune. 26. In many cultures, after the wedding, it is traditional for the groom to carry the bride over the threshold of their new home. This custom originated from the belief that bad luck may fall on the bride if she enters a new home with her left foot first. The custom of throwing rice or flowers at the newly married couple to wish them fertility and prosperity originated in Asia and later became popular in America. At a traditional Japanese wedding, it is considered unlucky to use words like cut, separate, or leave. Though weddings in many parts of the world still continue to be rituals that reflect ethnic, cultural, and social backgrounds, contemporary weddings incorporate more meaningful customs better suited to today's values.